Oh, wait. So today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to try and understand Kevin Durant,
Okay.
the man behind the basketball legend.
Right.
Um, our main source for this is going to be a recent interview he did on the Impulsive YouTube channel,
Yeah.
um, hosted by Logan Paul. And it's a wild ride full of unexpected moments that reveal a lot about Katie's personality, anxieties, and desires.
It's interesting that you use the word understand because from this interview, it seems that even Durant himself is still trying to understand himself.
Yeah.
He insists that he's the nicest guy in the NBA,
Right.
yet rejects the label.
Yeah.
There's this push and pull between how he wants to be perceived and how he actually comes across, especially in the media.
Yeah, that nicest guy bit
Yeah.
definitely got my attention. It almost felt like a challenge, a dare for the audience to disagree.
Yeah.
And then there's that dry humor he uses, like telling Logan Paul he's 39 years old. It keeps you guessing. Are we in on the joke, or is he messing with us?
I think that playful ambiguity is part of what makes Durant so captivating.
Yeah.
He's aware of his public image, the aloof or arrogant labels that are often thrown around,
Right.
and he almost seems to enjoy subverting those expectations.
Right.
It's as if he's inviting us into a game, but he's not giving us all the rules.
Okay, but does that make him unapproachable? Because there are moments in the interview, especially when he talks about dopamine and feeling overstimulated,
Right.
that suggest he might actually crave deeper connections.
That's where it gets really intriguing.
Yeah.
He links this overstimulation to his apparent lack of interest in relationships.
Yeah.
On one hand, it sounds like classic KD being cryptic and a bit provocative, but on the other hand,
Right.
there's a growing body of research on the impact of constant digital stimulation on our brains.
So he might actually be onto something.
Exactly. Neuroscientists are finding that the constant influx of dopamine from social media, notifications, all that instant gratification
Yeah.
can actually dull our response to other stimuli.
Yeah.
It's like our brains become desensitized to the more subtle, nuanced rewards of real-life interactions.
So Durant's feeling of being overwhelmed, even when surrounded by people, could be a real physiological response, not just him being difficult.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder how many of us are experiencing something similar without even realizing it. Are we sacrificing genuine connection for the quick hit of a notification?
And it makes you question, if even someone with Durant's resources and fame feels this disconnect, what hope is there for the rest of us?
Right. It's like he's articulated a very modern anxiety.
Yeah.
But let's not forget the other character in this story, I Show Speed.
Mhm.
The interview is almost as much about him as it is about Durant. His chaotic energy yelling, "Ronaldo's better," while getting RKO'd.
Yeah.
It creates this fascinating generational clash with Durant's more subdued persona.
Speed represents this new wave of online stardom
Yeah.
where authenticity and unfiltered personality are prized above all else. It's almost a complete 180 from the carefully crafted image management we see from traditional athletes like Durant.
And isn't it interesting how Durant seems to relax a bit around Speed? It's as if he's almost relieved by someone who's so unabashedly themselves,
Yeah.
even if that self is loud and unpredictable.
It might be that Durant envies Speed's freedom. After all, he talks about feeling bad at hanging out.
Right.
He's lost the ability to simply be himself without the weight of expectations and scrutiny.
Yeah.
Speed, in all his chaotic glory, represents a kind of liberation that Durant seems to crave.
He's a walking reminder that maybe you don't need to be polished and perfect to connect with an audience.
Right.
In fact, sometimes the rawness is what resonates the most.
Yeah.
But even though they're so different, they both reveal something about how we navigate this digital landscape, how we see connection and meaning in a world that's constantly vying for our attention.
And that tension between curated persona and genuine self is something that plays out throughout this entire interview.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what's lurking beneath the surface of Kevin Durant.
Well, let's dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
We've got his ashy skin saga to unpack.
Yeah.
Plus, a surprisingly candid take on his relationship status. Stay with us as we try to decode the enigma that is KD.
So you mentioned the ashy skin incident earlier.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a funny meme, though.
Right.
It was a glimpse into how Durant handles the constant scrutiny that comes with being in the internet age.
Yeah, it would have been easy for him to ignore it or get defensive,
Right.
but instead he addresses it head on, even joking about upping his lotion game.
Yeah.
It's like he's acknowledging the absurdity of it all, but he's also refusing to let it control him.
There's a real sense of agency there.
Right
You know,
on.
in a world where athletes' bodies are constantly analyzed and commodified, Durant's response feels like a subtle act of defiance.
Yeah.
He's saying, You can make fun of my skin, but you can't dictate how I feel about myself.
It's refreshing, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the age of hyper-curated social media where everyone's trying to project this image of perfection.
Yeah, and it ties back to what we were discussing earlier about authenticity. Durant's not afraid to show his flaws, even when they become viral fodder.
Hmm.
It's a vulnerability that makes him more relatable, even amidst his extraordinary talent.
Okay, but then he throws us another curveball. He talks about his love of Tetris and Pokemon, these throwbacks to a simpler time.
Yeah.
And he mentions Interstellar as one of his favorite movies. It's a heady film that explores some pretty profound themes.
What's fascinating about those choices is how they seem to represent different facets of his personality.
Yeah.
On one hand, you have the nostalgia for childhood games,
Right.
this longing for a time before the pressures of fame. But on the other hand, you have this intellectual curiosity, a
Yeah.
desire to grapple with big questions about the universe and our place in it.
It's almost as if he's seeking solace in both the familiar and the unknown.
Yeah,
Like he's trying to find balance between the chaos of his public life
yeah,
and the need for introspection and quiet contemplation.
exactly. And then you add in the detail about Dudley, the Triceratops skull he owns.
Yeah.
It's not just a quirky collectible. It speaks to something deeper about his need to surround himself with things that inspire awe and wonder.
I mean, a dinosaur skull.
Ooh,
That's next level collecting.
right.
But it makes sense when you consider how many ultra-wealthy individuals are investing in rare artifacts and experiences.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about the monetary value.
Right.
It's about possessing something unique, something that sets them apart.
It's like they're curating their own personal museums, filled with objects that reflect their passions and values.
Yeah.
And for someone like Durant, who's constantly bombarded with external stimuli,
Right.
maybe these objects offer a sense of grounding,
Yeah.
a tangible connection to something bigger than himself.
It's interesting that you say grounding because he also talks about getting caught up in the NFT hype
Oh, yeah.
and even mentions a failed real estate purchase. It shows that even someone as savvy as Durant isn't immune to market FOMO or making impulsive decisions.
It's a reminder that no matter how successful or intelligent you are,
Yeah.
we're all susceptible to the same psychological biases and emotional triggers. Wow.
And in a way, it makes him even more relatable.
Right.
He might be a basketball superstar, but he's also human,
Yeah.
prone to the same mistakes and miscalculations as the rest of us.
So if Kevin Durant can lose millions on a bad investment,
Yeah.
maybe I shouldn't feel so bad about that time. I bought a bunch of Beanie Babies thinking they'd be worth a fortune someday.
Perhaps not. But what's admirable is his willingness to be open about those missteps.
Yeah.
He could easily keep those details private, but he chooses to share them,
Right.
almost as a cautionary tale.
Speaking of being open, his honesty about not wanting a girlfriend right now is pretty surprising.
Yeah.
You don't often hear athletes of his stature speak so candidly about their personal lives.
It's definitely a bold move and
Yeah.
potentially risky given the relentless scrutiny athletes face regarding their relationships.
Right.
But it also feels like a deliberate rejection of those expectations.
Yeah.
He's choosing to define his own terms, prioritizing his personal growth and independence over societal pressures to settle down. And it creates a fascinating contrast with Logan Paul, who reveals during the interview that he's about to become a father.
Oh, wow.
Two successful guys, both in the public eye,
Right.
but at very different stages in their lives.
It highlights the diversity of paths, the evolving
Mhm.
definitions of what it means to be a man in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Durant seems to be searching for something deeper, a connection that goes beyond the superficiality of fame and fortune, while Paul is embracing a new chapter,
Yeah.
finding fulfillment in family and fatherhood.
So it's interesting how both Durant and Paul, in their own ways, seem to be grappling with this idea of connection.
Yeah.
Paul is finding it through family, while Durant seems to be pushing people away.
Right.
Maybe as a way to protect himself from that overstimulation he talked about.
There's definitely a sense that he's built walls around himself,
Right.
maybe as a defense mechanism against the constant attention and scrutiny.
Yeah.
But even as he pushes people away,
Right.
you can sense this yearning for something more, a deeper connection that goes beyond the surface level.
Right. He even mentions feeling bad at hanging out,
Right.
which is such a relatable feeling, but surprising coming from someone with his social capital.
Yeah.
Knowing what we've learned about him, what do you think it would take for someone to break through those walls and really connect with him?
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
It would have to be someone who sees beyond the celebrity, beyond the basketball player, and recognizes the complex individual beneath.
Right.
Someone who's not intimidated by his intellect or his sometimes cynical humor.
Someone who can challenge him intellectually,
Yeah,
make him laugh, maybe even beat him at a game of Tetris.
right.
But more importantly, someone who can handle his honesty and vulnerability without trying to fix him or change him.
It's almost like he's searching for a kindred spirit.
Yeah.
Someone who understands that his need for solitude is not a rejection of connection,
Right.
but a way of preserving his energy and sanity in a world that's constantly demanding his attention.
It makes you wonder if maybe it's not about finding the right person,
Mm.
but about Durant himself, learning to let go of that need for control, allowing himself to be vulnerable and trust that the right people will stick around.
That's a really insightful point.
Yeah.
It's not just about others reaching him. It's about him being open to being reached,
Yeah.
letting go of that fear of being hurt or misunderstood,
Oh,
and
yeah.
embracing the messy, imperfect beauty of human connection.
And maybe that's the ultimate lesson here.
Yeah.
We can build all the walls we want,
Right.
curate the perfect image, amass all the wealth and accolades.
Right.
But ultimately, the things that truly fulfill us are the connections we make, the love we share, and the moments of genuine human interaction that remind us we're not alone in this crazy world.
It's a journey we're all on in our own ways.
Right.
And whether you're a global icon like Kevin Durant or just someone navigating the everyday ups and downs of life that search for meaning, for connection, for something real, it's something we all share.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the mind of Kevin Durant, we leave you with this. What are you doing to cultivate genuine connections in your own life?
Yeah.
What walls have you built up, and what would it take to break them down?
Yeah.
Maybe the answers lie not in seeking out something external, but in turning inward, embracing our own vulnerabilities, and being open to the unexpected beauty of human connection.